This is going to be a video about how to maintain connection and intimacy after baby. My experience plus 5 tips to maintain that connection and intimacy. Welcome to New Mom on the Block. Okay, the reality is having kids can put a sudden and drastic strain on a marriage. There was a study in Denver years ago, probably about 10 years ago, that said that 90% of couples, marital bliss dives within a year of having a child. Pretty wild. They studied like 80 couples. They basically experienced a dip in marital satisfaction. Hi. Sounds familiar. It happens. But we can nip it in the bud real quick, and I am going to share 5 ways that I have maintained intimacy and connection in my marriage post-baby. So, is it possible to maintain a connection after baby comes, despite the complete shift in priorities, the hormonal shifts, the stress, the physical exhaustion, the mental, emotional exhaustion and load? It's crazy. Is it possible? I think it is. It will take work, it will take consistency, it will take a dedication on your part and on your partner's part, but it is possible. Here we go. 5 tips from my experience. Again, let land what lands, let go what doesn't. Number 1, you must validate and pay attention to your partner's own needs and desires. So your needs and desires, you must pay attention to, but your partner must also pay attention to, and vice versa. First, we must get really, really clear about what our needs and desires are. And to be frank, in my experience, early postpartum, my brain didn't work. And so I had no idea what my own needs and desires were at all. I was like, I'm taking care of a child. That's what I'm doing. That's all I need to do. But when I really sat with myself, I could feel that I needed to nourish myself with good food. I needed more sleep. I needed just a little bit more rest and peace time by myself. It's important that you and your partner become incredibly attuned to your own needs and the needs of the other. And that might take specific conversation. After all, we're not mind readers, as my husband would say. I'm not reading your mind, babe. And I'm like, why can't you read my mind, honey? But we can become more attuned by having an initial conversation. Hey, during this season, I'm feeling like my primary needs, my base level needs of sleep, food, love, rest, water, hydration, movement are completely not being met. And so if you could help me to carve out a little bit of time for these things, I think that would get me to just the next level of well-being during this season. And so that initial conversation jogs your partner's awareness and understanding, and then they can be hyper aware of maybe when you look or feel exhausted, and they can provide some relief or time for you to rest. From that point on, hopefully you both are then more attuned to one another. That then we can make space for those higher needs. And by higher needs, I just mean how we want to live our life here. That could include, what's really important to me on the weekends, that I have space and time to take a walk by myself and go to my favorite cafe and get the coffee that I love and read, a chapter of the book that I'm trying to read amongst being a new mom. And if that is just something that will bring me so much joy in my heart, then I am going to express that as a need and desire and ask my partner to support that and help me to make that happen. To review, it involves you having that initial conversation or two about your needs and desires in this moment, your basic needs, and your higher needs. The basic needs are survival level. Higher needs are how do I want to live my life right now? That is number 1. Number 2, think outside the box when it comes to intimacy. Okay, I know I know. The sex is not going to be, say, as frequent as you used to do it. It might not be the same experience because perhaps the partner who gave birth is having just a physical transformation, a physical healing, an experience with their body that is different than pre-baby. It just might be different. You might be exhausted. I don't know. Y'all exhausted with kids? It's a thing. And so let's think of intimacy outside the box. My husband and I always remind each other that our intimacy lives so much outside of sex as well. So I love that balance where, yes, we try to maintain and nurture our sex life, but we also create intimacy outside of sex. And that could be like a really deep, beautiful conversation on a long car ride. That could be like physical touch while we're watching a show on Netflix. That could be just when he comes home, before even giving any love to our son, he comes and wraps his arms around me and gives me a kiss and we make out or something, right? Let's think outside the box. Don't put so much pressure on the sex to be the thing that maintains the intimacy. Get creative and just allow your mind to unhook from this idea that sex is the only thing. Intimacy is just so much broader, deeper, more beautiful and dynamic than just physical sex, right? Number 3, there's always gonna be feedback we wanna give our partner when we're parenting, especially as new parents, as we're getting our own groove. And I feel like, especially as the mom, I'm like, I know better, I have an instinct, but let's be cognizant of our partner who did not give birth, carried the child, etc. They have their own instincts. And maybe they're not immediate, but they're developing them. They live within them. And so to always give negative or being so critical of them, can we balance the constructive feedback with really positive feedback? So I've really been leaning into giving my husband a lot of positive feedback when it comes to his parenting. I am the preferred parent at the moment. My son, when we're filming this, is 9 months old, and it can be a lot. It can be a lot to be the preferred parent, but oh man, when my husband walks in the room, my son lights up. When he plays with my son, there's just this, he's so good at allowing him to have his space, observing him, but then also engaging with him. It's this beautiful balance. And I told him the other day that I observed that. And I could just tell it really made him feel good. It really made him feel confident as a dad. Because I can see when he's just doubting himself, he's like, well, you know best, so you just do it. And we want to give our partners that positive feedback, that confidence, and really encourage them to keep trusting themselves. Yes, we're going to give constructive feedback. Yes, of course. But that can be done in a way that's from love and from a place of, I was feeding Mav the other day and I noticed that, it's really beneficial when I give him the spoon and he feeds himself. I noticed you were just kind of putting it in his mouth, but I've watched him and he's really kind of getting the spoon to mouth thing on his own. Next time you might want to try that. And it's very suggestive, observational, without a charge. So monitor the way you give feedback, doing it with love and without a charge. And from a place of I'm learning too, and this is what I've observed, it can be really, really helpful. So again, balancing the positive feedback with the critical feedback can be really important for maintaining that connection, because if we are just nagging the other person, they're going to break down and they're not going to feel connected to you, and you can start to feel resentment build and just frustrated. So it just creates that chasm. Number 4, date days. Yes, date days, not date night. If you can rock date night, heck yeah, do it up. Every once in a while we get a date night in, but my husband and I have been obsessed with doing date days. So we will get a sitter or our nanny to come on the weekend for 5-6 hour window during the day, generally between 1 and 6, maybe 12 and 5, 12 and 7, depends. But this one ensures that we have more energy for one another, that we're awake, because doing a date night, y'all, I'm gonna fall asleep. During dinner. So it's really important that I know myself and I'm well, during the day I have more energy. date days, okay? This also is, for me, great to have Maverick get to know and get used to other people supporting and watching over him. It's not easy, trust me. I'm not incredibly good at it, but it's good for me, it's good for him to kind of get that support from other people. And it also just like opens up the aperture of what we could do for the date. So honestly, at night, it's either like dinner, a movie, like maybe there's like a concert or experience, but during the day, you could do a meal for sure. You could do a movie, but you could also like go do a really cool, fun experience. Maybe you go to a museum, maybe you go to a pottery class, maybe you do like a workout and then go to a spa day. Like, it just opens up the aperture. So I love date days. Realistically, we're scheduling those twice a month. So see what you can do. Once a month might be all you can do in the beginning. Amazing, but make it consistent at least once a month. Put it on the calendar early so you can look forward to it, plan for it, prepare for it, all the things. Okay, date days. Number 5, last one, scheduling sex. So unsexy, but kind of sexy. Hear me out. So when I first proposed this to my husband, he was like, no. Like, part of what's sexy about it is that it's like random or spontaneous. And I'm like, I hear you. I totally hear you. But it's really hard to do that now with the baby here, you know, because any random time that I get without the baby or he's sleeping or whatever, I'm like, what am I doing? What do I need to do? Am I tired? Am I napping? Am I not? Like, what's my name? And so it's actually really helped to schedule where it's like, hey, Thursday, early evening, when you get home, the nanny's still here, she's on a walk, you get home early, things like that is really helpful because 1, we can look forward to it. 2, we can kind of like have a little foreplay, just like textual foreplay or what have you. And we've learned that like, yeah, sometimes it could be silly and awkward when we're like, okay, here we are, scheduled time, about to have sex, here we go. We're Southern when we do it. But you get in the groove and it just becomes like, yeah, we're parents now. This is like what we can do. We can schedule this and it's totally okay and still so sexy. And once you get in it and you're in the moment, it's like, oh yeah, like why don't we do this more often? So sometimes you gotta push yourself a little bit and not push, like, you know, ignore any signals from your body that it's like not the time to have sex. But what I mean is sometimes the mental game is like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to. And it's like, no, once you're in it, it's amazing. And that connection feels so good. The physicality of it feels so good. The intimacy feels so good. So sometimes we got to override the mental, schedule it up, foreplay it up in the textuals, and just commit to that, whether it's on a weekly basis, maybe twice a week, maybe twice a month, whatever you can do, just start. So that is how I have maintained connection and intimacy post-baby, especially in this first year. It is a work in progress. It is not perfect. Some weeks are better than others, but I feel like these 5 things have made all the difference. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'm so curious. Thanks for joining me for another episode of New Mom on the Block. If you have any recommendations for videos that you want me to do, I am all ears. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you being here. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.